Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Version One, a podcast where interesting people come to talk about their creative processes, imposter syndrome, inspiration, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Version One Podcast and subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com. And you can also find me on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville if you want to support the show. And you can listen to this episode on any podcast app or head over to YouTube to watch the video version. I am here with my guest this week, Laura Jaye Cramer, founder of Waiting Room Publishing. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, Waverly. Thank you. I didn't realize that you had a buy me a coffee link set up. I would have bought you a coffee
Oh,
to
you're
kick off the session so we could both be at. I'm having my coffee.
oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Can we just start with having you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So, as you said, I'm Laura J. Kramer. I run Waiting Room Publishing and our group of magazines. So, we have 5 magazines under our umbrella, and I spend a lot of time working on all 5.
I'm so excited to dive into all of that with you on this episode. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So when I was a child, I desperately wanted to be a ballerina. It was truly the only thing that I cared about. I was in ballet classes 5 days a week, starting from age 3. I was not even naturally a very girly girl, but there was something about ballet that just spoke to me. And so, probably around the time I was 3, I was sure that that was going to be my life.
That's awesome. I also come from a competitive dance background. I did do ballet too, but I didn't go to a ballet studio. So I only took ballet twice a week. But it wasn't like a ballet intensive studio. So I was never that great at it. But that's cool. We both have a dance background. That's awesome. I'm curious what lessons that dance experience had. And then you went on to be a professional, right? So like the experiences of being a competitive then professional dancer, like taught you in terms of like life lessons that you take with you to this day? Because I think the competitive dance world is like so specific. Like I think unless you grew up in it, you don't really get it how intense it is. So I feel like my personal experience, I had both a positive and negative experience. I think that my studio there was a lot of like toxic issues about it, but it also taught me a lot of like really important life lessons. So I was just curious, like if you took any lessons from dance and growing up in the dance world that play a role in your life now.
I think it being ballet, I think ballet fully shaped who I am, and very similar to you. So I feel it's almost divided 50-50 toxic experiences and really positive experiences. When the movie Black Swan came out, people were asking me, they're like, "Oh, is dancing in a ballet company, is it like Black Swan?" And I'm like, No, not really. I mean, it's mostly fun. Like dance and exercise gives you endorphins, and endorphins make you happy. And so there is a weird structure. I think it's better now. There are a lot of body, complicated body issues that are involved that don't necessarily go away. And if I had a magic wand and could remove one thing from my brain, it might be some of the body negativity. Um, but the positives that, in my mind, outweigh the negatives are growing up with an understanding of how to have a huge goal. Dance in general is very difficult, ballet is very difficult, and you're always reaching for perfection and it never exists. And so you're always sort of chasing this carrot. And I, it doesn't work for everyone. I like that. I love having huge stretch goals and wanting to get just hyper focused on the details that make those goals possible. So I feel like that shaped basically my entire personality. That sums up my entire personality. And I think that comes from ballet. And on a practical level, just it introduces you to art generally and music generally, and the creative process generally, form, structure, all of those things. I think I'm glad I did ballet. I understand that it can be damaging and negative. There's that element of it. I love it. I loved it. I love it. I love watching ballet. It's weird. You're so right when you're saying, like, people don't totally understand what it's like to be in it. It's like a different world. It's very weird.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful for like I was in the dance studio from the minute I left school till like 9:30 p.m. every
Mhm.
night, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday like until like 7 p.m. And that was considered getting out early, and then
Yeah.
sometimes weekends. And I'm
Uh-huh.
grateful for that experience as a kid during my formative years because one, it kept me out of trouble because I didn't even have time to get into any trouble as a teenager. But two, it was like hard work, discipline, working on a team, working with different types of people and all centered around one goal. And it's both team oriented, but then also you're competing in solos or small groups, which is also like, like developing that muscle as well. But then, yeah, there's also that other part where it's like, there are certain parts of it. Yeah, the body just I think I have body dysmorphia for life just because it was ingrained in me from such a young age of only
Yeah.
one body type is the correct body type or the best. And then
Yeah.
also like there are elements, of course, of working on a team and having those really important lessons as a kid, but also you're also competing against your peers. And sometimes I felt like my teachers would pit us against each other on purpose or in toxic ways. And so there's like so many different elements of like, but I do think that the outcome of it, even though I was never a professional dancer, I think the life lessons that I learned from dance were really important and worth it. So that's why I was curious. I was like, oh, I wonder what she takes with her. Um, because I know I take a lot from the psychology of growing up in that environment into my day-to-day life outside of dance.
Curious, I always ask dancers this, if there was one, so I know how I feel, but I know that some people prefer the group element and the dancing together with your friends, and then some other people really thrive in the solo competitive, um, being the full focus. And I'm curious if you had a preference between the two.
Ooh, that's so interesting because I never thought about it that way. I would say I enjoyed I enjoyed small group, and I'll say why. So, like, at my studio, you had your solo that you competed with, which was always fun, and it's always fun to get, like, recognition because 'cause you're the only one on stage. But I really like the small group and then we had large group, of course, like, larger productions and things like that. But the small groups, you had a little bit more control over like who was in your small group. So I always got to like choose to do duets and trios with my friends. And so I think that was my favorite part because when you're in a larger production, unless you are like the lead, like dancer in your level, which I was never like good enough to go competitive or good enough to go professional. And so I was always kind of in like the mid range toward the back, which is fine. But I never got to like kind of be the star. I was just kind of part of the ensemble, but like the small group was small enough, like, everyone got to be seen. I also got to do it with my friends. And I kind of also avoided, there are some stereotypical like high school mean girl elements to my experience. And so in the large group, I kind of got to like, like that, that was just a part of it. But the small group, I got to do more with my friends and people I was close with. And it was like that team element, but it was like a more friendly team element. So I'll say
Yeah,
like my
yeah,
duets and trios were my favorite.
yeah, yeah. It's just interesting to hear what people prefer because it's when I ask people, it's like 50% prefer the solo attention and 50% are like, no, I like dancing with my girls.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it also like changes like based on age or based on style of dance too, but yeah, that's super
Mhm.
interesting. How did you go from professional ballerina to a magazine publisher?
Yeah, weird career path, I suppose. I was dancing in San Francisco. I was working for a company in San Francisco, and I don't remember. I must have been 22 or something. So I had already been dancing professionally for, I'm bad at math. I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and And it was pretty clear to me that one of my hips, I always have trouble with one of my hips, and it was pretty clear that it was either going to, if I was going to continue dancing professionally, at least it was going to get much, much worse. Or I could take a step back. And so you don't want to get injured when you're 22, especially when you've been working towards something since you were 3. And I was in, um, I was super depressed. I didn't know what I was going to do because I had put all of my eggs in one basket. Truly, like dance was the only thing that I cared about. And so a newspaper editor approached me. She knew who I was through ballet, and she asked me if I wanted to write a ballet review for the newspaper. And I thought, I always enjoyed writing in school. And so I thought I would write one and it would be something very nice that I could do once. And so I wrote one, and then I wrote another one, and then another one. And then I ended up writing for the whole art section and transitioned from being an artist more to being an artist in a different way and talking about art. And worked in magazines, newspapers, PR. Eventually, that turned into some marketing as well. Um, I like to focus on art, and I focused on art for a long time, but especially living in San Francisco, and at the time, it sort of bled over into the tech world, and it turned into this crazy experience where I got to work on a wide range of things that I never would have expected from writing one ballet review in a newspaper.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a pretty like natural transition because you're kind of staying in the ballet world, and then it
Yeah.
sounds like your media career kind of just naturally expanded after that. That's awesome.
Yes, and I wonder about that sometimes. If I had been working on something that I wasn't so familiar with, because truly the first piece of writing that I published was about ballet. If I hadn't published something that I was really comfortable with, would I have been as confident? And so I consider myself lucky because it did the first step worked out. The thing about media is that there are not a lot of jobs, and so you have to be really, really, really persistent. So I do think I was very lucky with the first one, and then I just like dug my claws in. I was like, I like this. I'm gonna make this work.
Absolutely. And then, so as your career in media is expanding, could you talk to me a bit about the backstory of Waiting Room Publishing and why you decided to launch your own publishing company and your magazines underneath it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was quite a bit of time where I was just working for other companies. I didn't start Waiting Room Publishing until late last year. So late, what was that? Fall 2024. Is that right? Yeah. So in 2021, I had a series of traumas, I suppose. My dad died by suicide in June of 2021, and then my brother died by suicide in September of 2021. And I did not the next day set out to start a media company dealing with grief and sadness and loss. It took me a couple of years to process and go to therapy, but I found that my background's in magazines. So when I need something to do, when I need to process information, I work on art projects of my own. So I had made just a little mock-up magazine for myself about processing grief and processing specifically suicide because it's a very particular type of trauma. And I had shared it with a couple of folks, and the response that I got was really, it's weird to use the word positive. But the response was, it was really positive. And so I I started thinking, maybe this is something that could be interesting for funeral homes, for hospice care, for palliative care. When you're in a space and it might be the worst day of your life, for me, I like to put my hands on something physical, and I like to get grounded in something. I need to hear stories. I need to hear that other people have gone through this, or they understand this, or or something, or I need to just mindlessly flip through a photo essay. And so that's what I put together with, it's called Candlelight Magazine, and that was the first magazine that we started.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I'm very sorry for your loss. To share as well, I also lost my brother and my dad, though many years apart. But and then my dad died a year ago, last October, and then the following 6 months, I lost five family members on both sides of the family. Like, so my father died in October. My great aunt on my mother's side died 2 weeks later. My uncle, so my dad's younger brother, died in December. My grandma, so my mom's mom, died in March. And then my great aunt on my dad's side, who was basically like a grandma to me, died in May. So I lost a lot of people this year. So I know a lot about grief. I know it's a lot. And so, but when you had reached out and I was reading about your magazine, I was like, I really wish I had this resource when I was going through that, especially when my dad was in the hospital, because in waiting rooms, like you get 3 month old People magazines, old TV guides, like really boring, kind of like useless, not useless is like maybe me. I don't mean to call them totally useless, but like boring and like just not relevant, sort of
Yeah.
mindless media. But I feel like if I had access and I knew about Candlelight Magazine and I had that in the waiting room of Buffalo General Hospital, it would have brought me a lot of like comfort. So I love your mission. I love what you're doing. I think it's so important because I think that not a lot of people know how to talk about grief, especially if you aren't the one going through it. Like the people going through it, everybody feels differently. Some people want to talk about it, some don't. There's a million different emotions, but then it's also the people around you. Like I felt like sometimes like you could kind of see people like around you being like treating you a little differently because they don't know what to do. And it's a little like you could see kind of the deer in headlights look. And I'm like, just treat me normally. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think your mission is so important. So thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate that. How did you know? Because you're obviously taking something so traumatic and the feeling of loss, which when you lose family members, especially a sibling and a parent, like that's something you'll carry with you, for the rest of your life. How did you know you were ready to put something out into the world that was like a result of that trauma, if that makes sense? Like, how did you know it was the time?
It makes sense. And thank you as well for sharing. It's so interesting to think about because I've had people ask me like, "Oh, so when your family dies, you turn it into a career? Like, don't you feel like that could be counterproductive for your own health or healing, just to like continue making it a part of your daily life?" And I don't know that my advice for everyone would be to like make that your career. Um, for me, it was very natural to start working on it because I felt like I needed that. I don't know if you're the same way, but when I'm working through any type of emotion, I have to literally like put my hands on something and create something. I remember being in a funeral home and same deal. We had like sticky 3-year-old TV guides for some reason, entertainment. And I was like shredding the paper and just like trying to build a little structure just to get something going. And so I don't know that I ever made a conscious thought that, okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm going to start this. It was something that I had just been picking at for such a long time. I think what I did have to make that switch, okay, now I'm ready to blank. It was when I was ready to share it because A, it is personal. B, I'm naturally very introverted. And although I've worked with brands and I've worked with companies to help launch startups, including media startups and including new magazines, I had never done it by myself. And I had never been the one truly in charge. I had been in the room with someone else who was in charge. And so there was this moment where I had to it's so funny to think about, like, I literally had to build up this courage to press publish on a web page. And that felt more daunting than putting together the actual magazine, which to me feels very natural, helps me process.
Yeah, for sure. How does one even start a magazine? Like, what are some of those first initial steps that one has to take if they want to start their own magazine?
So I can tell you what I did, and I can tell you the right way to do it, and they are not the same thing.
Okay.
The way that I did it is I just made a magazine in Adobe InDesign and I uploaded it to a digital magazine hosting platform and I put it on the internet and I sent a couple people the links. I believe perhaps a proper way to go about it is to learn much more about uh, production end, which I had to do after I had already announced and started working on things. And then all of the sudden, I had to learn about barcodes and just print specifications that had never been part of I had always worked on the editorial side of things and I had worked on the marketing side of things and I had worked on the brand strategy side of things, but uh, I had never been in a warehouse where they print anything. And I think if you start a magazine company, you should consider that you do have to print magazines and it's really hard and you'll have to teach yourself a lot and if you do it the way I did very quickly, which is a little daunting.
Wow. Yeah. Could you talk to me a bit about the creative process behind the decisions that go into how the magazine looks and like the shape of it? So like the creativity behind like coming up, like I'm looking at your website now. Candlelight has a very specific aesthetic to it. So how you came up with like the design you wanted or the paper you wanted or all of those creative things that decisions that go into making a magazine.
Sure, yeah, Candlelight was sort of an anomaly because it was so much my baby. And so Candlelight, out of the 5 magazines that we publish, Candlelight is it's almost exactly the way that I want it. And that is crazy. And if you've ever had a creative job, you know that that is not how it works. You do not get to have just like a say in how things turn out, and then have it turn out that way. So for me, it was an aesthetic that I had been working on for, you know, subconsciously at least 10 plus years. It was just what I naturally gravitated toward. And I know that that's not helpful when you're talking about a process, but it's really putting in 10 years of editorial work. And then behind that, a whole career in ballet where I was very much concerned about clean design and sort of what a graceful layout could look like. So, Candlelight is the only one where there wasn't a whole lot of market testing in the background where I was taking it to people and there were multiple rounds of feedback. Just that one, it happened so naturally, and it's, I think, the only project I've ever worked on that came together so naturally.
I'm so glad you brought up that ballet kind of informed your aesthetic because that was one of my questions. Because
Mm.
for those listeners who have not seen Candlelight, we'll link it in the show notes, of course. But I'm just looking at your website and it's like it's the vibe of it seems very ballet influenced. So that's why I was like
Yes.
I was gonna ask. So I'm so glad you brought it
Yeah.
up because the images are so graceful, but combined with the font, it's very strong. And I think graceful but strong is like very
Mhm.
ballet. So I can see where like your brain like being formed by being a ballet dancer, like how that infused your design aesthetic. So that I'm so glad you brought that up.
Thank you. So, in terms of balancing gracefulness and strength, that I'm sure you're right. I'm sure that 100% comes from ballet, and it's it's something that I really value in design, and I think for the subject matter, it works pretty well. That doesn't translate to every project I've ever worked on. Like, there's not always this need to balance grace and strength sometimes. I've worked on projects that are, for example, for kids. They don't really care about grace at all, and that's it's outside my wheelhouse, and I like it. Um, but yes, for Candlelight, I think I'm happy with the balance, and it's very nice to hear that you recognize that and that it's working for you as well.
For sure. Can you talk to me about the process of how an issue comes together?
Yes. So I have a wonderful, wonderful managing editor named Noah Sanders, and Noah and I meet around a theme. So I'll give you an example. I think our latest issue, our theme was growth. So because it's sensitive material, it's for people who are processing grief and loss. When we say growth, we mean growth in while holding on to the memory of people, using your experiences with that person to inform how you move forward. And so we spend a fair amount of time working through our themes to make sure that um, they make sense with the time of year, that they make sense with the subject matter, that they make sense with the writers that we have available. We work with predominantly freelancers right now because it's a media startup, of course. um, and so we get our themes set probably 6 months in advance and then put out calls to our networks and see who's available, who's interested. We work with we have a fairly tight roster of writers who we're really familiar with and who we've worked with a number of times. Um, and what we try to do is we try to hit on multiple notes. So, because our audience, like I said, sometimes we're meeting them on the worst day of their life, they might need, well, I assume everyone needs something different. There are some people who want to read features on what exactly is going on in their brain chemistry when they're experiencing grief. What is firing? Why is it work? Why do I feel this way? Some people need that to process. And so we connect with expert sources. All of our materials, they're not medical advice. They're technically for entertainment purposes. Entertainment is maybe not the right word, but they're for reading purposes. It's not medical advice, but we do make sure that our sources are they have peer-reviewed research. The information that they're sharing with us is always science-backed and very clear if we're taking that sort of route. We also, some people don't operate like that at all. Some people do not want to know what's going on in their brain, and that is it's either scary or it's too much information at the time. And so we work with a lot of poets who just talk about what it actually feels like to be in that process. We work with a lot of wonderful essayists who do something similar. They talk about their own experience in ways that is ideally easy to digest, understand. So, for example, one of my favorite essays that we've published was by an author named Lauren Parker, and she wrote an essay called, I'm going to butcher the title. I think it's called I Lost My 300-Day Streak on Duolingo After My Dad Died. And it's a story about how strange it is that the world keeps spinning when you feel like your world has collapsed. And so she's getting these notifications from this green bird who's angry at her for not signing into Duolingo. And she's like, I can barely even get out of bed. I'm not worried about my German lesson. Um, and everything in between. So we try and publish a range of stories from a range of voices. We focus a lot on diversity of writers, on perspectives, on topics within the theme, and we really, our goal is to meet the readers where they are and offer something for everyone, because grief does look so different for everyone.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. That's really interesting to hear you talk about the balance of content that you need to have because so many people just process things different ways. And I have to read that Duolingo lesson essay because that sounds super interesting. I remember when my dad was sick in the hospital, I remember like coming home and taking a shower. And I remember like looking at this bar of soap, which is a bar of soap is something that's meant to disintegrate. It's meant to like wear away after each use, you know? And I remember thinking like this bar of soap is gonna probably outlive my dad, which is super weird. You know what I mean? Like I remember thinking that in the shower. And so just like hearing about Duo, I also am on like day, I don't even know what, learning Spanish on Duolingo. So when you talked about that essay, I was like, wow, I relate on like multiple levels because I love Duolingo. And that is like an interesting sort of lens to think about things because I remember thinking of having that thought in the shower and thinking that's so strange. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like weird how like those thoughts pop into people's head, especially when you have like a warning or like a death is expected, you know? And
Mhm.
so yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to check that out. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. The bar of soap is interesting because I do think everyone who's experienced loss has a story like that. And this is part of why I was so excited to start Candlelight, is because what you said, that like, oh, is this weird that I'm thinking it? Every single person thinks that. And I remember, so my is this weird, am I acting crazy thing was I got in a fight with a man at a grocery store. I don't fight with people. I operate in the world like I'm wearing little horse blinders. I'm doing my own thing. I don't fight with strangers. I got in a fight with a stranger at a grocery store, and I remember getting into my car at the end and being like, "Oh, I'm not okay." That was
Yeah.
so out of character, and am I gonna be like this forever? And I do think it would have been helpful to hear someone say like, "Oh no, I wanted to hurt someone at a grocery store too." You have free will, don't, but it's normal, okay to feel that way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think when you are going through that time, your mind is just like a tornado and like in so many ways you're not acting like yourself and so sometimes it's like hard to feel like okay, is what I'm experiencing like normal? Do other people feel this way? So I love that your publication gives a voice to that and to all the complicated thoughts and feelings or actions that people have during a really tumultuous and scary and just grief-stricken time. So yeah, I'll definitely have to check out that essay for sure. What you mentioned, so Candlelight is one of your publications. What are some of your other publications under Waiting Room Publishing?
Yes, so we have 5. We have Candlelight, which we've talked about. We have a general mental health magazine, which obviously was born from my interest in mental health and preserving your mental health. And I've seen firsthand what happens when you don't. And I'm a big advocate for talking about mental health struggles, and actually very similar to talking about death. I certainly have my issues of my own surrounding depression. It is genetic, obviously. Um, and so I'm very open talking about it, and I like to create that space. So we call it's called Clarity Magazine, and it's for healthcare offices. It is also not health advice, but it is reading material that is science backed, and ours we have a fantastic roster of sources who contribute to Clarity Magazine to shed some light on our mental health. Then we have 3 senior magazines. So The Grand Life is a senior lifestyle magazine. We have Vital Years, which is a senior health magazine, and we have Gigi, which is a senior women's lifestyle magazine, and it's named after my mom's mom, Gigi. So it's secretly my favorite because I love Gigi.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Wow, it sounds like you are just spreading like really important messages and starting really important conversations across the board. That's really beautiful. As someone who is running 5 magazines, I can imagine that is like so much. You're probably managing a bunch of writers and teams and also like the business side of things. What does a day in your life look like?
Well, let's see. I do sure work a lot. So when I wake up in the morning, I am a morning person and I'm an evening person. I am not a 3 p.m. person. So I structure my day around that, which is the nice thing about being able to make your own schedule. I wake up around 6 or 6:30 and I take care of the dogs and I get them fed and I get some exercise slash animal time. And for me, that is absolutely non-negotiable. I have to go outside. I have to drink coffee. I have to listen to classical music on my own. I cannot listen to the news first thing. I listen to it like second or third thing, but I just have music in headphones, just like Waverly, like blasting Rachmaninoff at 6 in the morning, walking dogs, and that is my favorite time of day, drinking my coffee. Then I work from about 6:37 until 2 p.m. usually, and then I take a break. And when I take a break, I take a break. I don't, are you like this? When you take a break, do you actually unplug or are you still like on your phone working?
Um, no, I would say, I mean, I always like have my phone on me. I'm like bad about being completely disconnected, but if I'm taking a break, which I kind of, it's funny hearing you talk because I also kind of structure my days like that too, because I don't like the afternoons. I'd prefer to
Mhm.
work like first thing in the morning and then take
Mhm.
like a 4 or 5 hour break and then work in the evening if I have to. And so, yeah, normally what I'm doing is I'm like walking the dogs or hanging out with my boyfriend or cooking or something like that. But I still have my phone on me, and normally I'm like listening to a podcast or stuff, something like that. I'm not, unless an email is like urgent, I'll answer it, but I try not to work during that time.
Are we the same person?
Maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, because I always get like I get a slump around like 2 or 3 p.m. And
Yeah.
I always feel like also just living in like New York City and in upstate New York and
Mhm.
Buffalo, especially in the fall and the winter, it starts to get dark pretty early. So if I stop
Mhm.
working around 2 or 3, I can still enjoy the last couple hours of daylight and warmth, and I can take my dogs for a walk without it being dark. And so that's, or in the summer, that's always like the hottest hours. And like, who wants to work when it's like
Mhm.
so hot? So that's when I'll
Mhm.
normally like go to the gym so I can spend some time
Mhm.
indoors in AC and escape the heat or get lunch or something like that.
Is working out, do you consider working out to be part of a creative process? Since you, it's, I guess it's kind of a leading question because I feel that way, being a former dancer, where if I don't like getting my body moving and my muscles moving is so tied to triggering something
Yes.
create. And I wonder if you're the same way.
100% because whenever I feel uninspired or I'm like, "Oh, I have this project but I have like no ideas for it." What I do is I either take my dogs for a walk or go to the gym with no headphones And then because I'm working out or doing something with my body, or my eyes are just visually not staring at a screen, that's normally when I get my best ideas. So yeah, I
Mhm.
think, yeah, as long as I don't have headphones in, because sometimes like I see going to the gym or taking my dogs for a walk as more of like an escape, and I don't want to be creative. I want to just like kind of turn my brain off. So sometimes I'll put on a podcast or put on music and then just kind of wander around my local park or go to the gym or something like that. So it depends. But yeah, if I need to like refuel my brain and come up with ideas or think about something in a new way, or I'm just stuck on something, I'll go without headphones. And that's normally when I come up with the best ideas.
Maybe I'll try it. I'll try. There's part of me that I don't know if this, let's see, I was just about to say it. I don't know if this is weird or not, but part of me is maybe afraid to be alone with my own thoughts too far away from home.
No, I hear you because I used to be really scared of going somewhere without my headphones. Like I used to
Mhm.
always have to take them with me, but like how I kind of like untrained myself is like just put your AirPods in your pocket and they're there if you need them. So you don't have to like commit to the full like hour-long walk if you don't want to. Or you know what I mean? Like you have the option, but I would say challenge yourself to do it for at least 15 minutes. And then normally what happens to me is if I'm like, "Ugh, I don't really like I want to listen to music or I want to listen to a podcast. I don't really feel like being alone with my thoughts. I'll just be like, okay,
Mhm.
first 10 minutes, or like if I'm at the gym, like first exercise, no headphones, and then I could put my headphones on after. And then normally what happens is I get on some like thought train and then like I do the whole workout or the whole like walk with my dogs without headphones and I didn't even realize it, you know? So
Okay.
you could start small. You can just say, okay, first 10 minutes, no headphones, you know? Because I get it. I used to go everywhere with my headphones and I like would never have like quiet time. I would
Are
always have a
you,
podcast on.
well, I think you're more extroverted than I am too, because uh, having headphones is a security blanket, not just because I have the I don't have to listen to myself. I can listen to something else, but also because it kind of it creates a little bit of a barrier that sometimes I appreciate when I'm out in the world. But I get the
Mm.
feeling that you're much more, do you get energized talking to people? You have a podcast, you must.
Yeah, yeah, I would say I'm pretty extroverted, but
Mhm.
even when walking around though, like, I guess it's different because I guess living in New York City, like people don't really stop to talk to you unless they're trying to sell you something or get you to sign some petition. So normally you can say a polite no thank you and keep walking. So like I guess, but I think in different cities maybe that's more of a thing if people stop and interrupt you. But you could always put it like if you have like a big pair of headphones like this that are a clear signal, like don't talk to me, just put you can always just put them on and just like not have anything on.
Yeah. Or, I could be open to talking to people.
Or yeah, that too.
I'll work on it.
But yeah, that's okay. Wait, that's super interesting. You use exercise as a form of your creative process as well.
Yeah, I
Tell me
think
more
so.
about that.
Well, I don't think my brain turns on until I'm like literally like shifting around in my chair trying to figure out what it is. I don't think anything fires until I've like done a little bit of like put my arms above my head even. I am probably so deeply conditioned to start the day with, when you're a ballet dancer, you start every morning. It's called class. You take class every morning and you go and you work out essentially for an hour 10, hour and a half. Um, and I did that every day until I was 25 or something. And so if I don't have if I don't have that, I don't feel like my brain turns on. The other thing I will say is that this is not medical advice, but in a lot of trauma therapies, they have you tap into different physical activities because maybe this is so obvious to people. I had to spend a lot of time and money to learn this, but you have to do certain physical things to connect your brain with your body, and they speak to each other. And as a former dancer, that's probably something I should know. But the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, I do think sitting at a desk and trying to be creative is not the way for me to get things going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the mind body connection is so powerful. And yeah, that's why there's things like trauma informed yoga. Like I know that was a class that was offered at a studio near my apartment in Brooklyn. And there's this saying, I don't know where it comes from, and I also don't know if it's like technically scientifically 100% accurate. Maybe someone can look into it, but do you know, have you ever heard the phrase of the saying like your emotions are stored in your hips? Have you heard
Yes,
that? Yeah, and so
yes.
like people oftentimes like recommend if you're going through like a hard emotional experience to do hip opening exercises.
Mhm.
And that's supposed to be super helpful. I don't know why. I don't know the science behind it, but I just think it speaks to the mind-body connection, like exactly what you were saying.
It is so true, and there's something this if you're watching the YouTube video, you can, like, sort of see this, but if you just lay on the bed with your legs, these are your legs, this is the bed, and you lay and you just, like, keep your body like you're laying down and let your legs kind of fall, it stretches your what is this, like, your psoas, and
Yeah,
it
like the
does
front of your hips, that
yes,
part, yeah.
it is not a cure for depression, but you'll feel something moving. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like if you're doing yoga and you do the pigeon pose, which it's
Yes.
hard to describe, but it's like your front leg is like an L and your back leg is stretched behind you. If anyone's listening doesn't know what it is, you can probably easily Google it because I don't think I can explain it super well. But that always, I think, feels so good, especially if you're at a desk job and you're just sitting all day and your hips get so tight and you don't even like realize it until you go to stretch and you're like, holy shit.
Mhm. I used to have I need to get a new office set up. I used to have this very crunchy granola ergonomic chair where you're basically sitting on your knees, but it's a desk chair.
Interesting.
It's perfect, and I was watching The Simpsons one time, and Lisa Simpson had this chair, and I was like, "I had that chair growing up." I knew it was good because I trust The Simpsons, you know?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, your magazines all touch on very personal experiences that someone is going through. I was wondering, if you've ever connected with readers and if you could share any sort of like connections that you've had with people who read your magazine, because they're so, you're touching on so like deeply personal experiences. So I can imagine people are really touched by your work.
Thank you. I hope people are very touched by my work. What is nice for me as being more in the editor role than in a writing role is that not only do I get to hear all of the positive feedback, I then get to tell everyone about it. So I get to, this is, if you want a really selfish job, be a magazine editor for something that's maybe a little mission based. So a reader will have a positive experience. They'll tell me about it. So I feel good. And I have this beautiful connection. Usually someone's telling me a story about why it mattered to them. I get this great moment of connection with this reader. I then get to go to someone who I've paid and I get to tell them how much their work meant to someone else and I get to be the person who delivers good news and this it sounds cheesy, it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. I love nice gossip, and it feels like nice gossip.
Yeah,
I
do you have like a specific example of a reader who reached out to you because they were, affected by something in your magazine?
Yes, so in our I guess it was our first issue, it was a piece that actually I wrote, and it's I don't write so much for the magazine. I do more of the editing, but I did write a piece about an art piece called The Wind Telephone. So I will have to find the name for you. I'm blanking on it, but a fantastic artist in Japan put together this concept of the wind telephone, which is a photo booth that is in his garden and the phone in the phone booth is not connected to anything. You don't actually get a dial tone, you're not making a connection when you pick up the phone, but because you're in this very serene space, you hear the wind around you. You can use the phone as an opportunity to talk with anyone who might not have a phone that you can call. So the art project, the wind telephone, started in Japan. Now there are wind telephones everywhere across the globe, and I'll find the website for you. There
Okay.
might be one in the area because they're around, and you can find different phones. And so I published an article about it. Someone found a wind telephone in their area, went, had a conversation to someone who was with someone who is no longer with us, and told me about it and said that they had never, they had never heard of this art project and that they had never thought to talk out loud and do the physical, again, mind body connection, have the physical moment of like holding up a phone and talking with someone like they had always done. And that meant so much to me because I get it. My impulse whenever I'm happy about something, my first impulse is to go text my dad, and I can't. And so, but my hand literally goes out to be like, oh, I gotta tell my dad. And so I get it. I love that art project. I love selfishly that I was the one who got to tell someone about it and that they got to have this experience. And I will absolutely send you the link for finding a phone in your area. And you can make one. You can make your own phone. You can put it anywhere. I've seen some beautiful ones in forests or in front yards or like in apartment unit. It's very cool. So
That's
that was
really
probably
cool.
that was my favorite one by far. Yes.
That's awesome. Where can people find your magazine?
They can find it at waitingroompublishing.com. We have digital magazines that are always free, and then we have print magazines for sale. They are bi-monthly magazines, so 6 issues per year per magazine.
Okay, so it's only direct to order right now. It's not in like stores yet, or
It is not in stores yet, but if any stores are listening, find me at waitingroompublishing.com. I would love for them to be available at stores
yeah,
right
and
now.
it should absolutely be in every waiting room in across America, across, like I guess what like where would you like to see your magazine? Like, is the goal for it to be in hospital waiting rooms one day or in funeral homes, or I guess where's the ideal like locations you'd like your magazine to be?
So right now we are for Candlelight specifically, since we're a couple months in, we're already appearing in select locations, but building those out. So for Candlelight, yes, funeral homes, hospice care, palliative care. We've partnered with a wonderful group called Judy's House, the JAG Institute in Denver. We donate, I believe it's 5% of our profits to Judy's House. They are a family bereavement center. So they work with children who have lost family members. They provide essentially therapy for children who are experiencing loss, and they're doing it in a way that is age appropriate and is truly helpful. I've seen firsthand how it can change people's lives. They're a wonderful institution. So they are also not the only family bereavement center. So I think that's something we would like to be able to provide as well, is get those in more bereavement centers because it's not just one person's. When someone is gone, it's not just one person. It's the whole family. So we do try and think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It also like reminds me of, have you heard of Ronald McDonald House?
Yeah.
Yeah, the house, there's one in Buffalo, which is why I know about it. But for listeners who don't know, they provide housing for people who have a family member or a loved one in the hospital. And so it's like the Buffalo one, if you have to travel to Buffalo for care and like you're already, of course, focused on providing your loved one with care, like housing is, you know, can be also a stressful thing to add on top of that. So they give you a house that's like pretty close walking distance to the hospital and it's a safe place for you to go and it's free. And so, yeah, so that, as you were talking, it reminded me of that. And I was like, oh, I could totally also see your publication in something like that as well. I'm sure there's like other variations or other organizations that do similar things, but that's just the one I'm familiar with because it's in
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Yes. I don't know if we've reached out to them yet, but I mean, we're always trying to expand our reach. There is the print subscriptions are paid right now. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I would love for the cost to be less or to be able to secure a grant so that we were able to at least distribute a bit to people who were not able to afford them because, it's so expensive to run a business right now. And so if you're doing something like providing a service, whether it's providing housing or providing therapy, I would love to be able to just figure out a way to have little extras like a magazine that could be really helpful. I would love to figure out a way to get those in more physical locations. So, you know, it's part of the media startup business where you're looking for grants and looking for opportunities, and it's 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 fun. It's a lot of work, but it's really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. During this like whole process, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome or feelings of self-doubt during this?
Yeah.
What is the like voice in your head sound like?
So I've never started a media company before, and there's a part of me that's like, you're biting off more than you can chew, and 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 that's one of the nicer little voices that talks in my head, actually. It's so funny because if I take a step back and I look at myself and the project objectively, I have 10 plus years of experience in media. I have personal experience, just talking about Candlelight specifically, I have personal experience with loss and grief and navigating mental health. I have an interest in sharing those stories. If there's anyone who should be doing this job, it's me. And so it doesn't make sense that I get these feelings of imposter syndrome, but of course I do. And I don't know if it's being a woman, I don't know if it's being I don't know what it is, and I have a couple little tricks. Um, but the one thing I will say is that when you experience very profound loss, I'm not going to call it a silver lining. I will say you don't sweat the small stuff as much. And so there is a part of me that's like, okay, people won't like my magazines. I've experienced worse. That's fine. People don't have to like my magazines. I can live through anything. So that doesn't mean that imposter syndrome goes away. I don't know how to make it go away. How do I make it go away, Waverly?
Girl, if I had the answer, I'd probably be very rich if I had the cure.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah.
know.
Yeah, I think experiencing loss definitely puts things in perspective. Back to what you were saying, that yeah, for sure. Um, I'm curious because um emotionally, working with something that affected you and your whole family and is was so tragic, the loss of your father and your brother, and then turning it into your work that you do every day, how do you take care of yourself during moments of maybe if you're having just a tough day? How do you take care of yourself?
I love this question. It's my favorite question. My honest answer is that I have a doctor that I really trust, and I pay them money. They tell me what to do, and I do it, and I follow their instructions to a T. So that is like, let me be so clear, that is totally different person to person. For me, because my genetic wiring is a certain way that it is, I am thrilled to take an antidepressant every day. I probably will for the rest of my life. I love that in 2025 we can go get support if we need it to function. I think that's great. So that is what my doctor prescribes for me, and so I am happy to do it. I also have a lovely therapist who I meet with once a week. However, therapy is expensive and it's not like I don't even think mine is covered by insurance. So it is something that you have to budget for, which can be really difficult.
Mm.
So there are resources like Candlelight Magazine that explain alternatives to therapy and supplements, not supplements like vitamins, but like activities, ways that you can take care of yourself that are free. I think it's really important to do all of it, especially if you need to do all of it. I happen to be a person who needs to do all of it. I have to make a real effort to take care of myself. So I do all of it. I do things that are paid, I do things that are free. I don't want to put all of my eggs in one basket. And so I try and spread it out. And I try to make taking care of myself fun and natural and part of my daily routine.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I think it's very important that the stigma around talking about mental health and talking about medications or things like that ends. So it's more of an open conversation and there's no shame around it. So thank you so much for sharing. Because, yeah, I think it's so, so important for, yeah, to be talked about.
Thank you.
Lastly, when someone picks up one of your magazines, what do you hope that they feel?
I hope that they feel at peace with themselves. I don't, I am very aware you cannot control things around you. You can't control what happens to you. Sometimes things are not fair. What we are aiming to publish are pieces that help make every day okay, because life is difficult, especially when it involves loss, especially when you have mental health issues, especially when you have complicated feelings about aging. It's hard to feel okay with yourself when there are so many, when you're pulled in so many different directions. I would love for people to feel like they're not alone, they're not weird, that they're okay and they're going to be okay.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Laura, this has been wonderful. Are you ready to move into the lightning round?
Waverly, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, what is something new that you've tried lately?
Oh, last night I tried to make Roman shades. Do you know
What
how
is
expensive?
that?
Okay, so Roman shades are a type of window dressing. Actually, this is kind of like a Roman shade. They are so expensive. I got a quote for one window of $600, and I said, "I am
That
what
is so
what are you putting?"
expensive.
It's so I tried to make Roman shades of my own last night. I didn't nail it. Tonight is round 2. I'm gonna I'm gonna figure it out. So in this moment, it's Roman shades. They're on a bench right there mocking me. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm fine.
Wow, good for you because honestly, I am not crafty, so, like, I would just
Oh,
if
you're
it were
not?
me, I would give up. I'd be like, "Yeah, I guess Roman shades are not in my future." So, good for you for trying to do it yourself. That's awesome.
I'll figure it out. I'll make you some.
Do you have a lesson or a message that you wanna share with listeners?
Oh, listen to your doctors.
I love that. What is one
Mhm.
thing you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
When I was first starting out in media, I wish that I knew that people are going to have negative things to say about anything you make. It can be the best thing in the world. Someone's not going to like it. Nobody cares.
I love that. Laura, this
Mhm.
has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you sharing so many personal parts of your life. And I know that me as someone who is going through like grief and stuff like that, it was this conversation has been very helpful to me, so thank you for sharing. And I know that people listening out there who are going through their own struggles, whether it's losing a loved one or something different, but I know there's a lot in here that they can relate to and learn from you. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. Could you share, where can people find you, order all your magazines, check out your work, support you, all of the things? Tell us.
Yes, thank you, Waverly. Thank you so, so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I would say I would love to connect with people. You can find our magazines at waitingroompublishing.com. On social media, we are currently just on Instagram and LinkedIn. Also, both you can find under at Waiting Room Publishing. And I think that's it. How smooth was that?
No, that was perfect. And we will have those links in the show notes so people can go to the notes and click directly and it'll take them right there. Awesome. Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Waverly.